Miles, I think we took more time to know because we were always out working. I remember the first time we got to school, he slapped a teacher. And circumcision is actually cosmetic. You don't need to do it, by the way, but it is so African.
We take you back to nursing the wound. They are 5 and 3 at the time,
Yes.
and they are curious.
Yes.
So how do you keep their hands off?
Wow, that one was quite a challenge.
Yeah.
By the time we were leaving hospital, Miles had already pulled the bandage. We agreed with the dad, whether we like it or not, in Africa. We value our culture.
We barely have information on circumcision of individuals who have developmental disabilities. And today we are honored to have a parent who made the decision to have her 2 sons who are living with autism go through circumcision. And she's going to tell us more about her decision and how it has been so far. So I'll ask her to introduce herself.
Hi everyone, my name is Judy. I am a mom to 3 children. I have 2 boys living with autism and ADHD, and my firstborn daughter, who has no special needs, is 9 years old. So my kids with autism is Miles, who is 5 years, actually turning 6 years in May, and then I have Matthias, who's 3 years and a half.
Okay, so thank you very much. I want to ask you, before we delve into the topic of the day, what would you say about receiving a diagnosis for your kid?
When we got the news we were together, we had to tell ourselves that no, the child needs help. It's not now more about us.
Yeah.
Thank God we didn't stay there for long. Some miracles just happened.
Do you usually feel like you took a long time to get a diagnosis?
Yes, we did. For Miles, it actually took long. I have an issue with the way we would go for clinics. For Miles, we went for full clinics until he was 2.5 years. And looking back now, I always know that from 3 months actually, this is something that should have actually been picked up.
Yeah.
But every time we went for clinic, no one raised up an issue, or no one noted that, like, for example, he didn't have any facial expressions. This is a boy that wouldn't smile at 3 months, at 6 months, at 7 months. I remember at around 8 months there, or 9, that's when we would see a subtle smile, and it would be news in the house.
Yeah.
If the sister Pearl would see Miles smiling, it would be like news. You come home, do you know mommy today Miles smiled at me?
Yeah.
It was something so small, but it was news. He couldn't actually, as at 3 months, we couldn't have visitors in our home. He would scream, and for us, we were like, hey, this boy. And even the more we went on into 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, there's that book that we use for
Going to clinic.
This boy wasn't picking things. This boy had not even developed, wasn't even having bubbling, as in all those things were not there. Surprisingly, the book writes 1 word, 2 word, this is what you're doing at this time. And I realized, they were only, concerned on taking the rates, checking on whether he's well, but on this other side, on checking on his growth and development, whether it was okay. That wasn't taken care of. Because by the time even we are realizing that something is wrong at 2.7, it was after we went to school. Actually went to school and realized that something was off. And that's when we chose to at least follow up. And actually, I think we hit to 3 years. Because at 2.7, this boy is not speaking. The boy is very hyper. And for that time, we were saying this is a boy's thing. We've never had a boy in our lives. Our firstborn is a girl. And we thought that boys are hyper, boys are messy, boys are, emotionally unstable. Boys will always be boys, and there's drama with boys. And that's all we thought. He'd bang doors. It was so rough. He'd get aggressive. He would feed a lot, especially things to do on wheat and products. And what we would do is we would give whatever he wanted, because we wanted peace at home. So it's at the point of going to school, I realized no, something was up. Because I remember the first time we got to school, he slapped a teacher, and he was at 2.7. And when we closed school, that's when I decided, no, I told the dad, no, something is up here. I think we need to check on this boy. And at that time, I think that's when we'd had now the second baby.
Yeah.
So it's just confusion of we have a newborn, this other one is already not speaking. There's so much to take care of.
For Matthias, did it take a shorter time? Was the experience different?
Okay. Okay, what I would say about Matthias. Maybe I mentioned something about Matthias before we go to Matthias.
Yeah.
So at this time when we realized something was not up, because now it's the right time 3 years. I remember, I think for me, I got some, should you sleep in and something tells you something's wrong with your child, please have him checked. And over the day my husband was not home. I actually texted him at 1 a.m. told him, some voice tells me our boy is not fine. And there's no speech, this guy is hyper. We've seen those characters and we are trying to protect him. That love that you give to your child. It's like, no, don't think all is well. You need to have him checked. And it's like, it's okay, we'll have him checked. So by the time we were seeing a doctor, we were referred to, we went saw his pediatrician, then he was actually wondering, how come no one has picked this? So, and then for us, we were not consistent seeing him. We were seeing a pediatrician, then we'd go for clinic at, I don't want to mention names, but one of our group service provider was near home, and no one had picked it. It was like, wow, this is so clear, because we went with the that's the baby before you call it.
I have no idea what it is.
It's called the clinic book. It has all the records, how the child has been growing, whatever has been achieving. Then that's when we were referred to a neurologist. And I didn't also like the journey about seeing a neurologist, because the neurologist mentioned, yes, there was of course something, but he didn't give it a name. And I think we did almost like 4 or 5 months in neurological clinics and visits. And later on, I don't know, I felt we were getting wasted because there was no diagnosis, nothing. I do remember every clinic, that is money. At one point, that's when we learned that KISE, Kenya Institute of Special Education, were having clinics. That's when I showed up. We learned on social media, and I told my hubby, let's go and just see what is happening, because at this time we had already noted that something is up. And at this time, at least we get to hear about the word autism. Though I'd actually googled after we started having this, the fears and everything. But this time, that's when someone mentions, your child has signs of autism, and would wish to refer you for assessment from a medical practitioner. And so my also think was getting his diagnosis at around 3.2, 3.4 there. And then we did take a lot of time. In 2 months' time, we started therapy. So when it comes to Matthias, see, by this time we already had my first experience. The ages are not quite apart, and it's when Matthias is born, that's when we are realizing, actually I remember Matthias was breastfeeding. I remember not breastfeeding for almost 2 to 3 weeks, because I was getting depressed after we got to learn that Miles has an issue. And those are the times now your friends start asking, how's the small baby, how's he doing, is he speaking? And people that you've had kids at the same time will ask you, how's the other baby? And I remember there's a day we had gone for a family function, and a relative would had the child, who had their child with Matthias, asked us, how is your boy, is he speaking? But this time we've lost speech. So my husband and I just looked at each other and smiled, because now what do you do? And you can't go walk along sulking around. It works against you. And every time we'd go somewhere social and someone asks, we'd just smile and say, it's okay, he's coming up well. Because again, you don't know what to say. You know, people know that you already have your first child has issues. Then the second one is here. And probably we've not gone so vocal about our second born. Most people know about Miles, even now we talk. Maybe some people will know now that our two boys all have the same diagnosis, but they're on a different levels of spectrum. Miles is the one who's highly affected than the brother, but well, they all responded positively on therapy. So by the time Matthias was getting to 2 years, we were alert. Because we had gone through the same journey, we were allowed to check on the signs of autism. By this time, we know what is autism, what are the signs of autism. We were so keen to ensure that we were present. Another thing is that with Miles, I think we took more time to know because we were always out working. You have an 8 to 5 job. Remember, I used to leave house at 5, come back because of the jam, get home at 6. And at this time when he's struggling, I'm expectant for Matthias. So that means we weren't giving him much attention. So I think we learned with Miles. We walked the journey. I don't think we've let Matthias alone. At least there he's not suffered. We worked with him. We know when he's speaking, not speaking, when he has emotional issues, when he has anxiety, and we're able to pick this. At 2 years, we noted speech has disappeared. We noted he has sensory processing issues. So what we did, we didn't panic so much, but what we decided is to put him on therapy as well. We didn't want to wait until 3 years so that we can get a diagnosis and so that we can do therapy. So we started the early intervention at 2 years for him. So the brother does hydrotherapy, so we also enrolled him for hydrotherapy. So when the brother was going for hydrotherapy, Matthias started going for hydrotherapy at 2 years. Besides also getting, now you know how you work with such a child, on making everything functional to work for him and providing a good environment. Then we provided that at home. So for him, we got his diagnosis. So after he turned 3 years, that's when we decided to go for official diagnosis. We went this year. We took some time. We had already seen it, and we were doing therapy. We were doing intervention. And because we always have the occupational therapists come home 3 times in a week, we could tell, there's a problem here, and we could tell it was not ADHD because now he was losing speech and would also regress on milestones. So we knew there was a problem, and we kept quiet on it, but we started working on him. But we needed an official diagnosis, right? Because for him not to get OT services, it's good to have a diagnosis. And we wanted to enroll him to school again with the brother. Again, it's good when you have a diagnosis, but you can know where you're starting from. And just for that, that contentment that I know what is up, I know what I'm working with. So when he went for diagnosis, we actually went with the 2 of them because the same doctor had done the same diagnosis for Miles. We thought of going with the 2 of them so that maybe a review and see how Miles is progressing. And yes, our fears are confirmed. We got the same diagnosis for autism and ADHD, but we could tell the doctor and the specialists and I could of course tell it was on a different spectrum, different levels. For Matthias is not that high as for Miles at that age, and he's already on therapy as well, already on functional academics. Yes.
When you look back, what would you say makes us to take so long to get a diagnosis?
Okay, for me, I would say there's actually a big gap. I think the parenting process, or even the schooling process, and the medics. For our case, Miles, we had to realize that there was something wrong ourselves, so that we went for assessment, or rather start getting information from the right people. And I'm thinking 2.7 is quite long. Someone should have picked it up maybe at least by 1 year if we're late. but it took us long. By the time Miles was getting an intervention, we get it from 3.7. Oh, and we've lost. I always feel that we lost a year. We would have helped a lot in that year. Come to Matthias, no one picked it up again. We had to do it ourselves. We had started even therapy without being told that start therapy. We saw there was an issue. We saw there was a problem. So by the time we were doing home therapies or going for hydro, it wasn't pushed by any nurses or any doctor. It is us, the dad and I. So there was a problem. And for me, if I was asked, by the time a mother is giving birth, by the time you're going for antenatal clinics, there should be this information that if you see this, it could be this. Or there needs to be that awareness that you can have a child with such cases, with developmental disability. You can have this and this and this. It gets a shock when you get and you're like as for me, I used to ask myself, you mean there's autism in our house?
Yeah.
It was so, you wonder. So this thing is real and it can come to your home. So there's a gap, a big gap. And now that being an educator, I have seen it even in school, where you see students come, young learners, very young girls joining school, and you can clearly tell that there is a problem. And it's not been picked. Parents are not quite aware.
Yeah.
And they've gone through, we all know that all parents go for clinic. And I'm sure even between 2 or 3, 4 years, a child will fall sick one time at a time. Such profiling should be done quite early so that we can pick. Are there things that we need to check? Are there some deficits or are there some signs that that can be checked? Because having a child who has no speech at 2 years, at 2.5, at 3 years, that is something to show you that there's a problem.
And after now you've gotten a diagnosis, can you say life has become easier, or how do you feel life has been?
Well, when we talk about autism is interesting. We have days that things are really tough. We have days that are quite okay. Like in the morning, you saw when you came, the boys were really calm.
Yeah.
Now we can hear the noise. Now it is 10. So by the time it gets 12 and 1 there, things go escalating. When we got diagnosis for Miles, it was chaotic. We were confused. And even the diagnosis did not make things easier. By then, you're used to the kawaida parenting. We had parented our firstborn with no issues. So this time, you have a child that has issues, has anxiety, has emotional issues, has speech issues, is not independent when they're required to be independent. You have to accompany wherever you just have to be, and is quite needy. It didn't make it easier, and Miles took longer even to respond to therapy. I remember the first 6 months, therapy, he would be screaming, and it would make you more desperate. And I think by the end of the year, at least things were getting now. We were able to get the hang of autism, understanding. But what happens, autism is unpredictable. Today he wakes up with this, the other time he has this, next time you have this. So it's been there. So by the time you're getting a diagnosis for Matthias, as you heard me say, we had already started doing something, because now we had already gone through, we had gone through a year or two of with Miles on the journey. So it was easier for us to accept, and of course it hurt. I wouldn't want to say accept so fast. It really hard to get that diagnosis, especially when you're told by a medic. Even your second boy has the same issue, and I would say for him it's been a bit smoother. Because I don't know, I'm this person who loves seeking solutions. I'm this person who's hands-on. My background is in education, though by the time I was giving birth to Miles, I have always been in corporate service, still in corporate service. But I don't know, something pushed me. I make sure I did my early childhood education because I had planned to start a school. By the time I was getting Miles' diagnosis, I didn't wait for the year to end. I had already started researching, had networks, had gone back to school. And currently I am taking special education at KISE. I had ensured that I started, teaching myself and learning how to do event therapy. So like the time we had COVID, we didn't let our children just go without therapy. We make sure that with the dad and I, we did therapy on them. And it's been easier now. At least we know what we do. We understand. Like if you have a new house girl, we train them how they can work with children, so that they can have at least some relationship. Because for them, if you do not have a relationship with them and know how to build it, then it gets to be hard.
Yeah.
So I would say where we are at, we thank God. We understand them fully. We accept them. We love them, and they are quite special gift to us. What we love about it is that even our daughter, who's 9 years, she knows how to work with them. She knows how to even have a class with them. If I'm busy, I'll tell my daughter, please help us do this. She knows how to play with them, especially the play. She's actually been their biggest cheerleader, and we thank God.
Yeah. So what adjustments have you found yourself doing? Because of course there was a certain way that you lived.
Oh yeah.
And then now you have these kids and you make your sneeze. I've just realized. So what adjustments have you found yourself doing?
Well, we had to make lots of adjustments. Literally everything. From our meals. So like Miles seriously reacts to wheat, any sugars, everything. So we had to change our diet. Our diet is actually suit for them. Like they don't like taking fruits.
Fruits.
Yes, they don't like taking greens. So what we do, like for their meals, we make sure we blend the greens, and then you mix them with it's cereals. They love cereals, and you have to ensure that you take a cereal that will not make them have digestive issues.
Yes.
I think they have almost like 3 meals that they take. Because again, as I mentioned, they have sensory processing issue that tend to come along with autism. So you find that their meals they cannot tolerate, and their meals are going to tolerate.
Yeah.
Yes. We've also made adjustments. You've seen our home. Our windows are open, no curtains.
Yeah.
You've seen our walls, graffiti. You've seen our home. I mean, you've seen our sofas.
Yes.
You just need. We are minimalist, in short. The TV is hung up there, and our house does not have to be. It has to be space, because we must have space in the house to allow them to jump and have space to run.
Yes.
And yes, we love it like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now I'm leading to this place where you feel as a couple that it's time to have the children go through the rite of circumcision. And given that their ages are 6 and turning 4, what time guided your decision?
Okay. After we realized that Marcia's had autism as well, of course there's that panic.
Yeah.
We panic because now it's not only one child but two. So after we got the official diagnosis, one day I just told the dad, I feel these guys should be circumcised. It had not been quite a big discussion at our home, but the way I know the dad, I knew he would have wanted them to go through the procedure. So when we got diagnosis, we decided to try to pave way and just do what we can do at this age.
Yeah.
And as we are bringing up them, or as we are parenting them, our main aim is to ensure they get to be independent. We try to make their lives as comfortable as they can be able to provide what we can at this age, because I believe when you do a lot, or when you take care of some things when they are young, it would make their teenagehood, their adulthood quite easier.
Yes.
So the moment we got diagnosis for Matthias, no, we are now sure now we have to. So that was one thing we thought we would need to clear it off and move
Get
from
over
our
it
bucket
anyways,
list.
yeah.
Well, when you talk about circumcision, it is actually cosmetic. You don't need to do it, by the way, but it is so African, so cultural, and we agreed with the dad, whether we like it or not, we're in Africa. And one way or another, we value our culture. And in as much as these children, we are taking care of them, we want to be able to take care for them forever.
That's true.
You think about stigma, think about society, community. The dad was quite vocal on having them circumcised would be the only thing. And we thought now we didn't have time to wait, now that Miles is turning 6 and the brother is 3 years. So that is what that guided us. Yes, we felt it was right for them to do it quite early, and we wish we did actually earlier. But now, because now we already knew what we were working on and with, we thought it was quite okay to go ahead.
And did you try to get more information to see if other parents have done the same, and how was it?
Something interesting is I tried to Google. When you decide to have them go through the procedure, we Googled. I Googled myself personally, and YouTube, nothing. Especially in Kenya, you'd want to get a Kenyan experience on what it feels to have a child with autism go for circumcision.
Yes.
There is no anything recorded for a mom who's taken their children or a child with autism, especially in those young ages. I tried to Google, and most thing you'd get would be just general autism and maybe cases not in Kenya. I would say we were green. And those parents that would ask that have their children who are older, they'll tell me, it is okay, just try. But here we are, our children are young, quite hyperactive.
Sensory.
Yes, they have sensory issues. They are compliant, they will not take instructions. And here we are, we wanted to do circumcision. So on this one, we clearly went to a specialist who guided us. And we trusted whatever we were told. And we prayed about it, and we just went ahead.
So I'm curious about the after, because I know they use the anesthesia when they are going through the process.
Yeah, we did general anesthesia. Yes, for them.
So when they come to, did you spend a day or two in Hosiama?
No, we did a day surgery. First of all, doing general anesthesia procedure for circumcision, it is quite expensive, and our insurance wasn't covering. This was only covered on outpatient cover. And think about it. Imagine having a child with autism, and they cannot take the procedure any other way. It has to be under general anesthesia because they cannot become to go through the procedure like other children do. And imagine the cover does not. It's not covered. And because it is considered as a ritual, it is cosmetic. So if I was us, the best option would have having them confined in hospital, that is admitted. But then that one would not have worked again because the gland was not in. So that is what we were advised by the insurance. So the option that we had was to do a day surgery where you get admitted in the morning and you get released in the evening. And we chose that because again, that one would have used our outpatient cover, and because there are two, and taking the procedure was quite expensive. So that would mean we would not even have afforded to do an admission. And one of the challenges we experienced is like our children, they do not take any drugs. They do not ingest anything. Any drug. We were given antibiotics. No one took the antibiotics. We were given painkillers. No one took the painkillers because they could not ingest them. It's always been an issue for them to take medication. Like we had to resort to a natural way. And remember, you cannot clean them. You cannot hold them and clean them. So what you would do is I would pretend that you're going to take a bath. You make some warm, salty water, and you sprinkle when they're not. When not looking at you. And I would say it was God, because we really pray that we don't get an infection, because an infection would also be another thing to deal with.
So let me take you back. You won't give them medication because they won't take.
Yeah, it has to do with sensory. No, simply sensory. Yeah, they cannot withstand the taste of medication. Yes, especially mild. He hardly takes medication. It either has to be sprinkled or an injection.
And when he's unwell and really needs the medication, is his way out, how do you go about that?
We thank God. We thank God that Miles is quite a healthy baby. We've not had major issues. The only issue that we've had with him growing up is almost near asthmatic sometime. And the doctor was kind enough, after I noted that he had issues, he's been using inhalers. And now he's 5. The last time we used inhalers was 4, maybe 4.5. We've not had issues with him. And because now we understand that he cannot stand medication, we try to ensure that the meals, you use the natural, like you'd use, is it garlic? Those natural, what do you call them?
The garlics, the ginger.
Just to boost his immunity. Especially like now it's a cold season. We will try not to expose him to cold. We'd rather do homeschooling than getting out to get exposed to bad weather and get sick. Yes, I thank God. At least they are healthy. Yes, we've not had issues with having to take a lot of medication. What happened is Matthias can tolerate 1 or 2 days, but after he's going to refuse. Yes.
Let me take you back to nursing the wound, because you see they are 5 and 3 at the time, and they are curious. So how do you keep their hands off?
Wow, that one was quite a challenge. By the time we were leaving hospital, Miles had already pulled the bandage, and suddenly it settled. Okay, we had discussed with the doctor. They needed to put something called sutures. I don't know, something. Yes, they understand. So there was something to cover his wound, and then the bandage, at least to help with the pressure to stop bleeding. But by the time we were leaving hospital, he had actually already pulled it, and then it pulled and it settled on the wound. So by the time we were getting home, we noticed that he was in pain, but we couldn't touch because we knew day one it wasn't easy. The next morning, when we were checking on him, we had to remove it because now we realized he was uncomfortable. So what means that the bandage went and rested on the wound. So there was another wound on top of that wound. And so we removed it and we explained to him, you're sick, be careful. At least he was able to notice that. He knew, by the time we were coming home, both of them knew something had changed. And this thing was painful. And by the time we were leaving hospital, they had an injection for pain. But when we came home now, we had to struggle. That was the hardest thing now. That was the hardest thing, because for Miles to let him, you have to kind of hold him by force, like you almost strangling him. And by day 2, because we realized that he wasn't complying, we let him be, because now that would mean we would hurt him, because he's getting violent, he's already uncomfortable, he's in pain, and you're trying to force him to get up that he's not comfortable with. We let him be.
So by what day would you say you felt like you can sigh a sigh of relief, things are looking up?
Day 2 and 3 was really tough because the wound was still fresh. Wow, that thing, circumcision is actually, it is. No, I really felt it for them.
Having a mental picture.
It was, they were in pain, and for a case, Miles has sensory issues, and most of the time he loves undressing. So it's been our culture, we do not have so many visitors in our home. So that anytime he feels like doing it, he has space to do that. So we kept them naked for, nothing. They were just like that. We kept them naked and it was really hot. And I love that we did the procedure when it was hot.
Yeah.
So they were just literally naked. And now going out, they were in the house and ensure that the house was really, really clean.
Yeah.
So the day 1, 2, and 3, guys were walking stark naked. And that one was okay because no one was coming into contact with any surface and everything, and they were really careful because they knew something else has changed.
Yeah.
By day 4, 5, the small boy was actually doing much better. I would say for him it took around 7 days because he wasn't touchy. Him was a bit contained, but Miles kept on any skin that was forming on top. For him is he loves, he treasures, rather, he's such a clean boy. Doesn't like seeing dirt on himself or anything.
So dry skin.
He was pulling off, and I think there's a night he pulled it off and he cried all night. And remember, I can't take antibiotics and he's not taking painkillers. So like that day we didn't sleep. Just holding him and telling him it's okay, and until at the point where he was able to sleep. And even now as we speak, now it's almost like a month over. You saw him try to touch her. Yeah. So every time there's a skin, at least now everything has formed around. So every time he sees anything black or dark, he has to pull it off. So we've let him be because now he understands that it is painful. But he also, he just loves his body. He doesn't want saying anything that is clear on his body. So we let nature take its course. And we are glad now he's healing. But the baby healed very fast.
When you saw Miles full of scabs and get so much pain, did you ever sit and wonder, was this even really necessary?
Oh yeah, I remember after hospital day 2 and 3, literally no one, we were almost like 4 adults taking care of them. We decided that we had to finish our chores very early so that if there's anyone in pain, we just hold them and hug them. Because now remember, they're not in any painkillers. Of course, I felt like we took them to problems. It felt like, wow, it was too much. And it was actually more painful when they had to go for a short call. Like a small boy would really cry. And I remember the first 2 days, he would hold, during the whole day. By the time he's going for the exercise, he would scream. And you'd be like, whoops. But anyway, now we are and they're healed.
So now your daughter, before you took your kids for the rite of passage, did you have a discussion prior of what she was going to expect?
Yes, we did. Actually, even on the day that we were going for consultation, she actually went with us. So the doctor and we were all explained about the procedure, how it would go and everything. She was very curious. She wondered why and how. And so when we came home and everything happened, she understood. One thing we've done is we do not, she's actually part of their lives. If there's actually any person who helps taking care of them, it is their sister. So she's always on every decision you make. Even when you're going for checkups or assessment, even for therapy. If there's therapy that we need to go out, she goes with them. If there is therapy that is being done at home, she's part of them. At least so that she has no other people to play with. Those are the brothers she has. They are her playmates. She actually so protective of them. She's literally part of them. And we try not to focus so much on them and forget about her. We try to. Of course, it can't be 100%. But we really try. We know that she requires a lot of attention. And for her to feel part of the whole process, because autism as a way, it changes your lifestyle, how you make decisions in the house, what you do, where you go,
what you eat.
Yes, everything. So well, we did the procedure when it was the schools were
Holiday.
closed.
Yeah.
So it affected her. She didn't go anywhere. She never had time to go out and play with other children. Why? She's always part of them, and she will actually prefer staying with her brothers than go anywhere.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, so I don't know. I think I'm still having that mental picture of the narration, but I feel like we've come to the end of the interview. Okay, so for a parent who's watching this and is stuck, is also in a place where do I not? What would you say to them?
Well, when it comes to it's a personal choice.
Yes.
Because I said it is customary, it is a ritual. For us, we were driven by the fact that whether it is ritual, whether it is customary, whether it is cosmetic, at the end of the day, we live in Africa.
Yes.
And we are Africans. Would I really want my child to fit in and be like, fit in into the culture and socialize like other children despite having a challenge or living with a challenge? Yes, I would. And that is what actually drove us. We'd want them to be part of society. And later on in life, I don't think I would want to have my child stigmatized because of something. If it is in my power to do it, why not? Yeah. That is one thing. Secondly, if a parent really want to do it, if you aspire, because it's a personal desire, like us, we had a personal desire to do this. Go ahead. It is possible. It is doable. In as much as your child would have intellectual disability, they understand the changes. They are able to know something has changed in me, and they cannot understand and live with it. But again, as a parent who's scared, or who doesn't feel this is not a must, it is not a must. If you feel it is okay and you're okay without doing it, no one should judge you for that.
Yes.
It is a personal choice. So go with what your heart feels would be the right thing to do for your child.
Yes.
Yes.
Judy, now that this whole thing is coming to an end, Ama, it's over, how do you feel?
Honestly, Chess, I would say for us that was a milestone. We were actually so proud of them. They were able to go this at their age. And living with autism, it wasn't something so easy for them, and they do not understand why we had to do it.
Yeah.
And for me, I was so proud of them. I was so happy. I was over the moon. Actually, on during that week, if we got a billboard and we were able to put them in a mountain somewhere and say, "Hey, we did it," I would have done it for them.
Yeah.
Yes, it really felt good.
Yeah. All right, so I think we've come to the end of our interview. Thank you very much. And if you want to reach out to Judy to ask any more questions, what's your number?
My number is 071 813 423.
Yeah. And it shows your name as?
Judy. I'm very active on social media.
Mm-hmm.
You can get me on Facebook as Judy Zisa.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are her contacts. You can ask her any other questions that you feel we have missed during this interview. But overall, I feel that we've covered most of the questions that may pop up in any person's mind. If you have any comments, questions, leave them in the comment sections and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Until next time, be safe and make good choices.